Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. And today I'm going to be looking at the Sight and Sound poll from 2012. This poll is 10 years old now, but I think I mentioned in a previous video that I want to watch as many films from the current poll as I can before the new poll comes out, which is expected in October, November time. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Sight and Sound poll is quite a prestigious list of what many industry professionals, namely critics and curators and programmers, widely consider to be the greatest films of all time. And this is very subjective, and for me, I find there is a lot of issues with the list, mainly down to who may be selected to put films on this list, but there's no doubt that there are some absolutely incredible films on this list. So in 2012, 846 critics, programmers and curators from around the world gave the BFI, who run the Sight and Sound magazine and the poll, which they publish it in online and in magazine. And from those top 10 film lists, from all those 846 people, they tallied a vote for each of those films. So that's not necessarily to say the film that is top of the current list, which is Vertigo, was number one by every single person who voted here. It just received the most amount of votes. So all 846 critics may have put it as number 10 on their top 10 films of all time, but because it would have had so many votes, therefore it is number one on the poll. So it's quite famous that for the first 5 decades of the Sight and Sound poll that Citizen Kane was number one. A lot of people love Citizen Kane. For me, I admire it, and I think it's a very good film, but for me, it wouldn't even make in my top 100 films. So controversially, or maybe not, maybe sort of it was needed to be taken off its pedestal. On the last poll in 2012, Vertigo pipped it to the number one spot. Now, on the last poll in 2012, there wasn't a single film post 2001 on the list. So that was a whole 11 years of cinema where there wasn't any films that were represented on the list in any form. So the newest film on the list is Mulholland Drive, which is currently my favourite film of all time. I absolutely love that. So I really enjoy its inclusion on the list, and it's fairly high up, and I get a feeling it might be a little bit higher this coming 2022 poll. But I expect there to be a large amount of films now that we're in 2022. There's 21 years of films that haven't been represented. And there have been some absolutely instant classics that have come out in that time period that I think may have some representation. And for various different reasons, some films that are maybe lower on the list, sort of towards like in the 90s on the top 100, maybe a lot higher due to sort of availability and sort of restorations of films and being put out on physical media and just more widely distributed, and more people have been able to see these films, therefore can vote for them if they think they're worthy of being in their top 10 films of all time. And one thing that I find really interesting about the poll at the moment is the lack of representation of genre cinema. So there's very little horror or anything that isn't sort of like a classic Hollywood or something that pioneered a technique in cinema, like editing techniques or sound and color and things like that. And there are a lot of audiences. If this audience poll, there would be a lot more genre fare in the list, which shows the discrepancy between audience sort of appreciation of film and critics appreciation of film. So what I wanted to do is just have a quick look through the current list and just sort of give my brief thoughts on the films that are in there at the moment, what I've seen, what I haven't, and sort of I'm making like a watch list of things that I need to watch or try to watch before the new poll comes out. And when the new poll comes out, I will be hosting a sort of roundtable with some of my friends in the community to discuss what we think of the new poll and what we think should have been included if it hadn't already, and what we're excited that has made it or maybe jumped higher in the list. And it's all a bit of fun. As I said, these lists can be arbitrary because art is subjective, but it's nice to see where the sort of film community, at least from on the professional critics point of view, the general consensus of where people place things in their importance in cinema history. So yeah, this is the current page on the BFI website for the Sight and Sound poll. As it says here, there's 846 critics and programmers and curators from around the world who nominated 10 best movies ever made, and the results gave us the new top film ending 50-year reign of Citizen Kane, and that is, so scroll down here, Vertigo. So out of 846 critics, Vertigo got 191 votes, which is quite a popular vote considering of how many films have ever been made, you know, so widely considered one of the best films. And for me, it wouldn't make my top 100 films, probably wouldn't even make my top 5 Hitchcock films. I do like Vertigo, but I won't scroll through the website like this. I'm gonna make it a little bit easier and go to a nice letterboxed sort of list that someone's made. It makes it a lot easier to scroll through the films. So just going through the list here. Ali, Furious the Soul is an incredible Rainer Werner Fassbinder film. Not seen Tuki Buki. The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp by Powell and Pressburger is amazing. Now Yi Yi by Edward Yang is one of my very favourite films ever, and I do think that this film is going to be a lot higher, maybe in the top half, in the top 50 films this go round, because of how it's now been widely available to see. For instance, the Criterion Collection has put it out in a very nice restoration on disc, so it's widely available for people to see now. And yeah, I absolutely adore that film. I was skimming over some of these films. I recently watched Aguirre, Wrath of God for the first time, which is a Werner Herzog film. Brightest Summer Day is another Edward Yang film, which has had a restoration put out by the Criterion. And I can see this jumping up higher as well. I do prefer Yi Yi to A Brightest Summer Day, but both of them are absolute masterpieces that I think might be in the top 50 this go around. Beau Travail, now that is one of my favourite films. I'm very happy to see this on the list, and this actually made the top 5 films on IndieWire's recent top films of the 90s. This came out in 99, yeah. And I would probably say it's my 3rd favourite film from the 90s. Yeah, so my favourite film from the 90s is The Big Lebowski, and then it would be Eyes Wide Shut, and then it's the Beau Travail. And Eyes Wide Shut, controversially for some people, made IndieWire's top films of the 1990s, and that film has seen a huge reappraisal because it was critically panned by, and audiences really didn't like it or didn't understand it, and I think it's Kubrick's second best film after 2001 personally. Chinatown, fantastic. Nashville's in my top 10 films of all time, absolutely love that. Blue Velvet, Lynch is my favourite director, absolutely love that. Blade Runner, incredible. Night of the Hunter is a film I only saw for the first time last year, and it blew me away. Absolutely love that one. Sunset Boulevard, one of my favourite films. Barry Lyndon, of course, Barry Lyndon. What else have we got here? So there's a bunch of things I haven't seen here. I've never seen The Battle of Algiers, or Ugetsu Monogatari. Godard, who recently passed away. His work I'm very hit or miss on. Either it lands really well or I really don't like it. Apart from Pierre Le Fou, which I found okay. There's a lot I really did like about it, but I found that there was a large amount of like literary references of stuff that I had no idea about. So I felt like I was not educated enough to understand the film, which was a bit of a barrier and a bit of a bummer when I was watching it. But yeah, currently in the process of watching Seitan Tango. I've just finished the first disc, or part 1, which was 4.5 hours long, and so I've got another 3 or so hours to go to finish this mammoth of a film. Very slow cinema, akin to Tarkovsky, but even slower. Very long, drawn out shots. I think the film, is like 7.5 hours long. I think there's only like 150 shots in the film altogether, which is ridiculous. Really interesting. So I'd like to give my thoughts on that once I've finished the whole film. Stalker is incredible. Love Stalker. Mulholland Drive, as I said, is my favourite film of all time. And then we're getting into the territory of a lot of films that many people regard as their favourite. Mirror is my second favourite film ever. What else have we got? I've never seen L'Atalante, I think that's how you pronounce it. What else? 8.5 is incredible. Passion of Joan of Arc's in my top 10 films ever. 2001 is in my top 10 films ever. Sunrise could, apart from Passion, is probably the best silent film ever made, and you can see here that it's number 5. Very, very, very good film. So as you can see, as I'm scrolling through here, there really is a lack of sort of horror and genre film in general. Not a huge amount of comedy in here either. Yeah, so I'd be interested to see how in the 10 years since the last list we're going to see new voices of critics and curators and programmers sort of have their input on what they regard as top 10 films of all time, therefore making the top 100 films. Because I see some things that are on this list falling out of favour, some things improving, and new stuff coming in. I can really see things like some Terrence Malick films making the cut, for instance, A Tree of Life or Days of Heaven possibly making the top 100. More recent sort of critically appraised films like A Portrait of a Lady on Fire might sneak into the top 100. Other than that, it's going to be really hard to determine what may make this list. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of it. Do I think that Vertigo is going to be number 1 come the 2022 poll being announced? I'm not sure. I don't think Citizen Kane will take number 1 spot again. I wouldn't be surprised if Tokyo Story becomes number 1. That was my brief thoughts and sort of overview of what I think of the current poll. I'm going to be going through the list of stuff that I haven't seen to get it all watched before the new poll comes out. And looking forward to talking with my friends about the new poll when it's announced in a couple of months. Do you have any thoughts on the poll? Do you think it has any validity? Is there anything glaringly missing from this list? Just give me your brief thoughts on where you are with the poll. And moving forward, I'm gonna review some films that I haven't seen that are in the list, and just building up towards that October-November release of the new poll, see where it's at. It's going to be an interesting time and lots of points of discussion. Really looking forward to it. So thanks everyone for watching, and until next time, take care.